The Third Age was said to be a turning point for mankind. With their newfound agricultural abilities, great settlements grew and flourished into civilizations. The tribes of man, no longer at the mercy of their environment, became its master. Yet there was still a great terror that beset the people of Elyria. Great ancient entities roamed the world and left devastation in their wake. The ancients, the vices, the titans. There is much debate as to the true identity of these beings, but what records that survive from those dark days refer to giants and darkness, fear, and fighting. Though there is some debate among scholars, one illuminated manuscript is often cited as referring to the sword and shield and their allies.
Fused as the crucibles vitae, the 4 and 6 corporeal bodies, each containing within itself its own powers and means of action, were augmented and indistinguishable of blade and bulwark. The manuscript makes an accounting of the vices being sealed in Carcion, of Haven being locked away, and of Elyria becoming the domain of mortals, made lonely and bereft even as it is become sentinel. It outlines a summit to be held regularly in order to keep guard against future threats. Among the people the oath is made, of vigilance and fellowship bade. Forget thee not thine duties grave, these golden lands united to save.
No records indicate clearly whether this summit was ever held, but the remaining manuscript documents the agenda and duties of the pact for the remaining 80 pages. Also during this age, Teresian scrolls outline the process of exchanging land parcels, crops, and livestock at an event called Rist Lerar during the season's shift. A detailed accounting of how the best land would be meted out to the most capable farmers, while new farmers would be given plots to prove themselves, also includes the first meeting of Dracian pilgrims on exodus from the jungle, and how many plots they received. Records indicate that during the Great Drought, the Rins Laurar was held annually, and that there was free exchange of produce and livestock, in order to promote hardier versions of both. Treaties between Torresk and other tribes began to proliferate in the generations after the drought passed, and bills of lading from that time indicate a sharp increase in the weight and size of produce and stock. It was not long before the Genoans, Naren, Dras, and the Weird were listed as land ineligible attendees of the Rinst Laharar. The event returned to a seasonal timescale and was moved to a port city to better serve the visiting caravans and growing attendance. Soon thereafter, records of the event appeared on documents across the continent, in every nation, from every tribe. Some, such as the Broodfear, appeared to be making arrangements with the Naren to ferry furs and woodcrafts to the southern function. Kipik and Harathi caravans were also funneled through carefully constructed Naren trade agreements. Regiments of dignitaries became a chief export during these meetings as well, at least for a time, ultimately replaced by the travelogues of clan leaders, heads of states, and religious leaders making the trek themselves. No longer a simple civic event to mete out land among the Torresk, countless strategic marriages, treaties, and trade routes are established each Laharar. Only generations later was it discovered, quite unexpectedly, by the Weird, that a secret organization of influential trade families had formulated their own agreements and were using the Laharar to press their collective thumb against the scale by fixing market prices, influencing trade agreements, and steering the course of governments to their own ends by manipulation, threat, and assassination. The Tolan Society, or IronKnights as they were known, used a currency of favors, or tolls, to bid for outcomes. These tolls were not physical currency, but rumor has it, an accounting of values encoded in messages, both spoken and written, between the members. The exact method of encryption has never been discovered or decoded, but few doubt it existed. The Weird were outraged by the discovery of this society, whose influence had spread within their collective and created an underground dynasty of individuals who were actively deceiving the rest of the community. Branded as traitors, this family was weeded out and exterminated, despite having infiltrated its members into noble houses and council chambers across the known lands. This bloody hunt did not stop with their own, however, and the Weird vowed to eradicate the Tolan society for upsetting the twofold Queen's ledger. Because of this, the Weird no longer attended the Leharar, at least not publicly. But when influential people were found dead at the event for years to come, gossip undoubtedly turned to whether or not they might have been a Tolanite, and their death was at the hands of the Weird. Though no one would have admitted it publicly, the general consensus was that the Weird were doing everyone a favor, and those suspected of being Tolanites were often put to death over other, unrelated crimes. In the wake of these dark events, a movement to reform the event gained popularity, especially among the Naren and Torreshian nobles. A new charter was drafted with a formal set of rules, something the Leharar had not reworked in centuries, that strictly forbade price fixing, secret orders, and assassinations, among other things. It also defined policies that would ensure that the meeting would remain neutral in the future, calling for the event to be hosted in a new sovereignty each time, and for an international committee to oversee the proceedings. To further distance this new principled and trustworthy event from its tumultuous predecessor, it was rebranded as Sedecim. Though somewhat shaky at its inception, the Sedecim quickly forged a reputation as the respectable summit that was always meant to be after expelling the ancients. After a time, the Weird even began attending again. The Sedecim marked a new age of peace and prosperity for mankind, and thus, Elyrian calendars retroactively changed to set the event as being held upon the 1st of Auror in the month of Angelon of the first year of the Fourth Age.